This is where you get the word like a kernel of corn to make popcorn, a corn kernel, and kernel is Latin for seed. So Cornelius named the O-U-S suffix was at the end of names back there. Julius, Tiberius, Cornelius. So we take that out, put it to the side, take the word Cornell, and Cornell goes back to kernel, which means seed. Why? Because he's a seed of Israel. And he had his name was a Latin name. Another example is if you go to Acts 16 from the top, it speaks about Timotheus or Timothy's father being a Greek. He was actually an Israelite who followed the ways of the Greeks or the Greco-Romans. Because you got to understand that the Romans didn't just speak Latin, they spoke Greek too, because part of their culture was based upon the Greek culture. So you have some writers that will say Greco-Roman Empire, because you had a lot of the things that the Romans did that they got from that they adopted from the Greeks, and they were all Edomites, just two separate empires. So you had a lot of them that were giving Greek and or Latin names. If you go to Romans the 16th chapter, it plainly mentions the names of the people that Paul was teaching in Rome, and they're all Greek or either Latin names, but they were Israelites. And one of the names was Herod. One of the members were Herod. He was an Israelite that had the name of an Edomite, a Herod. Anyway, it says many of whom had Greek and Latin names. These were Israelites, unless they are specifically identified as Jews or are found in a Jewish context, such as the dictatory inscription from a synagogue, meaning that you had Israelites that joined perfect example is this guy. He was the real general behind Vespasian and Titus. Alexander Tiberius. He was an actual Israelite that was born in Alexandria, Egypt, to an Israelite family that kind of pushed that to the side. So he knew he was circumcised and all that, and he was a so-called black man, but he had a love for the Roman system. Anyway, it says, nonetheless, by using a variety of sources from the period, it is possible to appreciate, these words are real teeny, appreciate the depth and breadth of Jewish service in the Roman legions. And that's why Cornelius, it was said that he was of the Italian band. It didn't make him Italian. And Italy is a place, not a people. Because you had Italians of different nations that were living in Rome and living in Italy, which is that body of land that looks like a boot. It said from the time of Caesar down to the early 5th century, which was the 5th century was 500 years AD. Anno Domini. There was Jews who served as simple foot soldiers, influential general like, oh, here it is. influential generals like Tiberius Julius Alexander. Tiberius Julius Alexander was an Israelite, and Jewish military units such as the Regi Emisseni Yehudasi, which is Yehudasi is Jews, like a troop or legion of Israelites, regardless of their relationship to Orthodox Jewish communities of the time. The service of Roman Jews in the imperial armed forces must be recognized. Let me read a little bit more. It says in the year 69, which is AD, the Roman province of Judea was consumed by a 3-year rebellion that pitted Jewish zealots against the authorities of the emperor and the house of Herod. When you go into the history, they were fighting against two enemies. They were fighting against the emperor and they were fighting against Herod. And by the way, when you go into the history, Herod had his own personal army. You had the Roman legions, the Roman military, then you had Herod and his army that worked hand in glove with the Roman Empire. And they were the ones that set, well, Rome was the one that set up Herod to be so-called king of the Jews. It said not only was the revolt a disabling factor in the eastern region of the empire, but it also posed a significant challenge to the new emperor Vespasian. Now, when you go back a couple of emperors, Claudius was the one that banned or banished all the Jews from Rome because they were raised in hell. Back then, they were on the street corners, doing like pretty much what we do. In order to quell the Jewish revolt, in his eastern marches, Vespasian resolved to send an army under the command of his son, which is Titus, with explicit orders to crush the insurrection. Although the emperor's young son showed exceptional talent and tact for leadership, he lacked the military, let me see if there's more here, experience deemed necessary for a Roman general. Therefore, the emperor was forced to choose an able commander capable of asserting Titus in the Judean expedition. A great number, as you read down, it mentions Tiberius Julius Alexander as you read down, and this is historical facts. So now, if you had Israelites that were part of the Roman Empire, and you had a major general that Vespasian set up to be the true leader of taking down the Jews during the time period of 70 AD, well, it's not far-fetched for a man named Cornelius, being an Israelite, being part of the Roman Empire. Anyway, I'm going to say shalom. So on to the next one. Shalom.